Hello, welcome to InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw. There is a hunger crisis in our area, and food banks are struggling to keep up because rising prices of food are making families struggle just to make ends meet, let alone put food on the table. What are food banks doing to help out? Are they keeping up with demand? And how do they sustain themselves? For these answers and other questions I've asked to have as our guest today Rick Gaupo. He is the president and CEO of Marion-Polk Food Share. Rick, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
What's going on? What is the current situation?
Yeah, the current situation is visits to local pantries are as high as they've ever been. So I can I can position you on pre-COVID, height of COVID, so right after COVID and now, okay?
Go ahead.
As I say right after COVID, even that I don't know what I mean, but let me use years. In about 2019, pre-COVID, we were receiving about 10,000 unique visits to local pantries. So let me break that down a little bit. Marion-Polk Food Share is a regional food bank. What that means is we are just really, really good at collecting all the donated food and government food that's available in the system and distributing it out to local pantries. So pantry is really our language for where families go. Families don't come to Marion-Polk Food Share. We're a regional warehouse and distribution center. They go to a local pantry. There's about 100 locations in Marion and Polk counties that people can get food from. Some of those are standalone pantries. Out south, Queen of Peace has a pantry at Table of Plenty. In the north end of town, there's People's Church and Kaiser Food Bank. Out in Silverton is Saka, and Independence is Ella Kern. And there's pantries all over the community. And those were I just was naming a few. We also support programs. So programs are like Union Gospel Mission and Church on the Park, where you're generally not walking into a local pantry, but if you're part of their program and they are serving the same people we're serving and they have food needs, we donate food to Union Gospel Mission, to Church in the Park, to Arches, to other programs that are serving the same crowds that we're serving. Okay, so pre-COVID, 2019, about 10,000 visits per month, and these were unique visits. Okay, COVID hits in March of 2020. We tell everyone, stay home, don't go anywhere. Your employment might be lost, or at least postponed, or frankly lost. During the height of COVID, we went from immediately 10,000 to 14,000 visits within weeks of unique pantry visits.
Oh my gosh.
So and then in 2020, by the end of 2020, federal programs caught up. So you and I and everyone listening received a stimulus check. We received that stimulus check whether we had fiscal need or not, whether we were personally hurting from COVID or not, we got a stimulus check. There are also programs like child tax credit program. There was renters and mortgage forbearance programs. There were student loan forbearance programs. There were child care assistance programs and SNAP emergency increases. Federal government safety net programs caught up to the emergency. Pantry visits went back down in 2021 to about the same level as pre-COVID, about 10,000 visits. There's some widespread understanding that child poverty actually decreased during the COVID response because of the child tax credit program. So by policy, we effectively reduce child poverty. And again, when we say child poverty, we mean families, we mean children that lives in households below the poverty level. So that's what we mean by child poverty. So COVID happens, political pressure says at some point we have to stop calling COVID an emergency. And so by declaration, COVID's no longer called an emergency and policies unwind. Specifically, the extended SNAP benefits got reduced back to pre-COVID levels. The child tax credit program sunsetted. So those were the two most substantial programs that were assisting low-income families. Pantry visits go back up. We can see this, like, as soon as that assistance started waning, pantry visits go back up. We are currently, so we went from about 10,000 visits, 14,000 during COVID, 10,000 again, to about 18,000 visits in the month of April of this year.
18,000?
18,000. Because the policy to end the child tax credit, the extended SNAP benefits, was political, but had nothing to do with the family's pocketbooks. So during that same time, inflation goes up, and so the pressure on the household is as great as it's ever been. Food prices are 25% higher than pre-COVID. I mean, that's low in some categories, but 25% higher than pre-COVID. Rent is same or more. Pay didn't go up. So we have right now, there's two things that are unusual in our economy. I think as of today, highest stock market ever. So it just reached over 40,000. Unemployment, fairly low. Awesome. If you're in the stock market. If you're not, who cares? And if your unemployment if unemployment's pretty low, but your wages haven't caught up to the inflationary prices of food and rent, then you're not better off. And so the lack of the safety net programs have brought people to food banks. And food banks are now what I would consider the safety net to the federal safety net programs. And so when our systems fail, people are turning to food banks, and we're receiving as high as visits as ever.
Did you ever think this could ever happen?
Not in the way it has, not in the way that felt normal to what food bank's role was in the community. This is worse than it has ever been. So here's some things that happened during the COVID period that I think we should highlight and celebrate. So COVID was a disaster, and it was awful, and it hurt lots and lots of families. There was some huge generosity during that time. So during COVID, more community donations happened than ever before. People received stimulus checks who didn't need them, who said, I'm not hurting. I know families are, and they would literally donate that exact same amount to the food bank. So we had an outpouring of community support. Government was also incredibly supportive, right? There was many things that were improving assistance to local food banks. The government funds are done. The extended COVID government benefits, those are done. Community donations, not quite as the peak of COVID, but higher than pre-COVID. So we're left with this really weird moment in time where the community has been very generous. It's just that the need has outstripped that generosity. Food, by the way, is also higher than the amount of food we're receiving in our that comes in the doors of Marion-Polk Food Share and then out the doors into the community is higher than it was pre-COVID. Our food supplies, from a historical standpoint, is pretty dang strong, but we don't sell something people are buying. So when more people have a demand, It's not like we can create more widgets, manufacture something, sell something for a higher price. We literally give away all of that food that comes through our doors. And that food supply, while strong in a historical standard, is not as strong as the pressures and the rising pressures on families. That's why we're seeing that's why we're seeing pressures at the local pantries. Not because of our food supply, but because of the demand for food.
What are the food pantries telling you?
They're telling us that their shelves are get empty faster, that they're concerned about, they ration more of the food, they turn away, they close the doors because their food is delivered. This is not happening like every week, but every week there is pressures, and pantries are. I mean, we donate literally all the food that comes to our warehouse goes out the door. I mean, our warehouse turns over, quickly.
Did any pantry have to close?
During COVID, our fear was that pantries were going to close. They were going to say, we're in the InSight space, we don't want people in our space. We're literally saying, so some things changed, and some things changed in delivery in a way that was super helpful. So the short answer is maybe one or two closed, but not in a way that was historically standard to a congregation was getting older and a volunteer group didn't come up from behind, didn't replace them, but substantially we did not see pantries close during COVID. In fact, there was this rightful, understandable concerns like this is important work, and so some pantries moved outside services for a while. I mean, literally for a year, delivery was outside. We're super proud of this. We have what's called shopping style. So back in the day, old school food pantry was a family would come in and say, I have a family of 4. A volunteer would say, great, I'll be right back. They'd go around the corner, they'd get a box of food, they'd bring it out and say, here it is. And that family would then go outside, look through the box and say, that doesn't work for my family, that doesn't work for my family, and then literally leave some of it on the side of the building. So, because here's what happened, is food banking had some, I would say, pretty mixed up attitudes about hunger and food. You give me a box of food, you didn't give me any choice on what that was. You don't have any idea what's in my cupboard or my allergies and my family. Like, I might not take all that food. So, in the most part, we've shifted to what's called shopping style. So now, that family of 4 comes in, we say, okay, this is the allotment for families of 4. Here's our shelves. Go around, pick what works for your family. There's a lot of dignity to the process, there's a lot of choice, there's a lot of understanding of you have dietary needs and preferences. So we love that. COVID made that harder because, again, we said, nope, don't come in the building. We'll bring the box out to you. We actually created a drive-by box. You could drive up to your car. A volunteer might meet you outside. I have a family of 3. They'd do a walkie-talkie or their cell phone or whatever. Some other volunteer, they'd drive forward and they'd get their food. It was just a part of the response. Turns out there's a mixture of answers here that were helpful, because you can imagine you can imagine somebody coming to the food pantry having 2 kids and saying, okay, now you're going to come in, you're going to walk these aisles, or do you want the convenience of somebody just giving you a box of food in your car? So there's a little bit of both that's true. Just like when I go shopping, sometimes convenience is more important than choice. Sometimes I would love somebody to deliver the food to my car, and sometimes I absolutely want to make a choice. And so we're seeing now a morphing of this shopping style to what works for you and your family.
Give me a sense of the chain of supply. How does that work? Where does the food come from?
So food comes into our community through two sources. One is community donated food. So farms work with us. We have a great partnership with Salem Harvest. So literally they'll pick the food off of the farm, keep some of it. It's kind of old-time gleaner type of approach. They keep some of the food for themselves, they bring food to us. We have other farms who say, I grew more broccoli than I needed, here it is. So farms, food processors, Kettle Foods, Truett Brothers are two examples. Norpack, Bruce Pack, they donate food. I'm kind of going from ground up. So from the farm to the processor to the grocery store. We literally pick up food every week from every major grocery store in town. And that is all of the food that's nearing its sell-by date, nearing its in-life date. We get it. And then after the grocery store, there's after retail, there's food drives. You and I bought food, we donated from our cupboard. So donated food from the cupboard is interesting because it's not a lot of the food, but it offers some of the largest variety because you have your choices and I have my choices, and then when we donate a little bit of that your choices get reflected in the pantry and my choices get reflected in the pantry. So that's the donated side of the stream. We also get some money to purchase food. So when we get that money to purchase food, we generally purchase by the truckload and we purchase in bulk. So we can get a very, very good price on purchased food. When it comes into our warehouse, volunteers will take the thing that came in bulk and we'll put it into family size units. The other segment of this, that's about 60 to 70% of our food. The other segment is government food. We have a very, very strange but understandable political relationship with in the United States. And so food banks and the farms are tied together in the Farm Bill. So we want to subsidize and make sure farmers are healthy. We want a healthy food supply. I get that. So the USDA government will buy food from farmers in certain market areas, product areas. When they buy that food, and the USDA, that food that they bought comes to food banks. It's a program that subsidizes farmers and assists families. So, and I like the program. Here's what I don't like, is when we call it the program for farmers, we call that investments, and the program that supports families, we call that welfare. I would rather call it investments in sustainability for farmers and for families. If you want to call it welfare for families, then call it welfare for farmers. But I'd rather call it an investment in sustainability.
Do you sense that spirit of collaboration is there? It just needs to be named something other than welfare between farmers and the food banks?
Well, as you might say, that's above my pay grade. I think we as a society are not comfortable when individuals need assistance, and we think of it as personal failure. And yet, if we give assistance to sectors, we call that investments. And that's a little crazy thought to me.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
It affects the work that you do.
Yeah.
And probably always riding in the background, a thought like that.
I think if somebody is hungry, if somebody is homeless, if somebody is mentally ill, this is less about the food share, this is more about me now. Why do I think those are individual problems and not society problems? And as a member of society, I want to be part of that solution. And I think food banking is part of that solution.
Tell me about your programs that really seem to be thriving in that way.
Yeah. So first of all, food banking is just crucial. It is part of the safety net of Salem, of Kaiser, of Marion County, of Polk County. I completely can understand that people are very, very concerned about homelessness and a homelessness crisis. Without food bank assistance, that problem would be off the charts because people are staying in their home because they can go to a food bank and get assistance. Because when you're $200 short on your rent, it is very, very hard to figure out how to get renter's assistance money. And so what you have to do is to say, where can I save money? I can save money by going to the local pantry. And here's one of the things I love about food pantry work and food bank work. We're a very low barrier. And what I mean by that is, if you come to a food pantry, we believe you need assistance. Because for the most part, people want to go to the grocery store when they want to go, have all the selection that they need, and go to one place. When you come to a food pantry, you're never going to get all the food you need. So you're still going to the grocery store. You might be coming to the food pantry first, and then you're going to go to the grocery store to finish out your meal planning.
Rick, we've known each other for a long time, decades, and I'm thinking I first became aware of food banks when I became working with Marion-Polk Food Share, and I had always thought of food banks as an emergency food source. Correct me.
Here are two definitions of emergencies. If I get in a car accident and all of a sudden to fix my car to get to my job, I have a $400 unexpected bill this month and I don't have $400. And so I can go to a food pantry, alleviate my budgetary pressures, pay my car bill, get my job. I think that's the super comfortable idea we have of emergency, that episode, that one moment in time, and awesome, we help that person kind of get past that bump. Great. That is one version of emergency. If you have been working and all of a sudden the price of food goes up 25% and your rent goes up 25%, and your paycheck went up 10%. Great, you're employed. You got more money in your pocket than you did last year. No, excuse me, you got more money in your deposited in your bank than you did last year. But you're falling farther behind because of the price of housing and the price of food. Is that an emergency? For that family, it certainly is. And so again, you turn to food assistance programs to keep yourself in your home, to put the gas in your car so you can get to that job, to buy the clothes for your children that they need. So I want to be careful to think emergency is only because of that one incident that happened, and to recognize that food banking is the safety net to the federal safety net programs.
How can we help? How can the community help you out?
There are 4 ways you can help. I used to only say 3, but I'll mention the 4th now. So the 3 I think everyone quickly understands. You could donate money. So you can donate money, and that money is going to get converted into action, that is going to get converted into acquiring food and distributing food. So monthly sustainers are wonderful to the food share. One-time gifts are wonderful. Money works. Okay, you can donate money. You can donate food. Every single can of food that you donate will get into the belly of a hungry family in our community. You can volunteer your time. We run Meals on Wheels in our community as well.
Oh yes, Meals on Wheels.
We run the local food banking program and Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels is only delivered by volunteers going out every single day to seniors in our community. So those are the 3 ways I've always said you can support. The 4th way is policy. Every single election, you can ask this question: will this help hungry families in our community? You can ask that by the candidate. Will this candidate more likely help hungry families in our community? You can do it by policy. You can do it by ballot measure. And you and I might disagree on how to help hungry families in our community. And I'm okay with that. But what I really want is you to say, I thought about that question. And that question led me to vote this way, support this candidate, this measure.
Making the questions to the candidates that much more important.
Yes, and making our choices about what community we want to live in to be not just about what makes my pocketbook larger, but who is being served and how are those in most need in our community being taken care of. This is a little bit of a tangent. I started this program saying the stock market, as of right now, as we're sitting here, is as high as it's ever been. Great if you're in the stock market. Zero impact if not. I hate that question about how is our economy doing. Well, look at the stock market. I would much rather the question be, is the average person able to afford rent on a regular basis? And for that to be our measurement. Can they afford food on a regular basis? And for that to be our measurement. And if our economy said, we're going to start measuring what the average family's earnings can do in their household, then I'd care about people telling me how great the economy was right now.
A very simple question. Where do I get food?
So, easiest way, anyone who's watching and says, I don't know where to go, you can call Marion-Polk Food Share, or quicker yet, you can go to Marion-Polk-Foodshare.org to our website, and we have a thing called Find Food. And Find Food on our website. But there's, between all the programs we run and the local pantries, there's about 100 different locations in Marion and Polk County. About half of those are what we call closed programs, so Union Gospel Mission, Samanka House, Arches. So generally speaking, you're not going there, but about half of them are local pantries open. There's a pantry open right now somewhere in our town. And if it's not something you have to get today, there's a pantry open this week somewhere near you.
In closing, could you just give us a thought about what gives you the most hope for sustainability?
I will say, I am genuinely a very hopeful person. I think this moment in time is a little harder because we have 18,000 visits a month, and the pressure seems super great, and it feels like it's going to be that way for a while. So that's just my truth. I feel like we're in a very bleak spot in terms of food assistance programs. What gives me hope is, I think in general, people want to love each other. And I think that love can get converted into action. And that action is donating to your food bank as one example. And I think that I have a long-term vision that is true.
Give us your website.
It's Marion-Polk-Foodshare.org.
Marion-Polk-Foodshare.org. Rick Gaupo, this has been a wonderful conversation, really enlightening, and I appreciate your being my guest today.
This was super fun. Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us today on InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw.